Hello, for today's video I'm going to be making a tutorial about adding in a kind of torch effect and a countdown to when the torch effect stops working. This is an example of it here in this game that I made. See the light effect down there? Little icon counting down. That's what I want to showcase and have a tutorial on today. I already have somewhat of a layout set out on this new game. So for the first bit, I am going to make a new layer. I'm going to make it at the top of this layer. I'm going to call it darkness. You can call it whatever you want, but I think that's more on the nose. And I'm going to scroll down here to the appearance. I'm going to deselect transparent, and I'm going to change this box here, this background color, to black, all the way black. And I'm going to change my opacity to something that I like. I think I like 33%. That's what I did on my game over here, but you can change it to whatever you feel is best. You could change it darker or lighter. Actually, maybe I might do it a little darker. That should be right. So this is our darkness. It darkens the level. Anyway, I'm going to, I already have something set up here. So what I'm going to have done is I'm going to make a light. I'm going to make a sprite here. And I'm going to make it all the way white. Or an off-white, whatever kind of light you want to do, whatever light you think works. If you want a certain color, you could use that. I'm just going to put it right here. Size doesn't matter, but hardness, make sure it's like a 0 or somewhere you feel happiest with, depending on your game, but I would prefer a 0 just for my little game. So it has kind of like that fade out effect on it. And this is the sprite here. I'm gonna just resize that a little bit. You don't have to resize it if you don't want to, but it's just something I do. I'm gonna move that off of the templates. And I'm gonna go down to properties here on the spray, and I'm gonna turn off initially visible. And then I'm gonna name this light. So now I have to figure out how to get this light to follow the player. Now I could do this a couple of ways. I could do it with every tick. I could have the light set position to player .x and player.y. My playable character I titled player. That's the little sprite that I can move around. Just for viewing sake, I'm gonna make this visible for a little bit. Also, another thing, if you put this sprite on, make sure that it is on layer darkness, not any other layer but the darkness, because it's gonna, and you might want to turn down opacity based on how much you want it to appear. Otherwise it might be a bit too bright. It should look something kind of like this right now. I'm just gonna move. I think that's alright. Let me make it a little more dim. That looks fine. That looks fine to me. So that's what you should be left with if you leave it exactly as this. But what I want is I want it to have a countdown. I want it to show like a little icon, and I want the game to count down from, say, 5 or 6 or whatever number that I want. And on 0 or on 1, I want it to disappear. Another thing, if you want to, you could use set position to player.x or player.y, but it's going to look a bit stilted. Let me go back and I'm going to just explain it with these little temporary sprites I made. Duck 1, duck 2, one's yellow, one's red. I'm going to explain it like this. So I'm going to make duck 1. I'm going to have his position set to player.x and player.y. So that is one way to do it, but it pretty much just keeps that exactly on your sprite, so it doesn't look too good. But if it's something that you really want to go for, something players probably wouldn't even notice if it's just a torch, you could keep it like that. But there is another way. You could use lerp, which, let me see if I can, it's gotta be every tick. So I'm going to set my second duck, duck 2's position, and I'm going to use lerp. So what lerp is it's a math function that lets you find a value between two other values, pretty much. In this case, I want my first value to be self, which is going to be that duck 2. You could also type in duck 2, but I don't want to. Self.x, and I want my second value to be player.x, and the value is, well, what I want my lerp to do is I'm asking it to find a value, but at the very end here, after these two values, I want it to find a space between those two. So if I put it like 0.5, it's going to kind of like find that value, or find like a value between those two to follow instead. I'm just gonna copy paste that here if I can. You'll see here in a second how it looks. So I'm going to set it to self.y down here at this little thing. Lerps are good for like more smooth movement. Like if you have a door that's opening or closing, say in Unreal, then you can use lerp as well. There's probably other examples like using it to move an object around the map, but at the moment my red duck is going to have a lerp. My yellow duck is just going to be complete static. Here's how it should look. Well, it would help if my duck was in the area. Should work. Oh, what? Hold on. What's going on? Duck 2, set position. Every tick. Self.x, player.x, point. Oh wait, I put 0, 5. Okay, make sure that it is between it is a number between a 0 and 1. Like, it has to be a fraction, or it's got to be either 0 and 1, because if it is 0.5, it is going to go completely out of your template, and it's not going to follow any of these two values. Okay, so that should have fixed it. Okay, you can kind of see that the red duck is kind of like lagging behind when I move. Let me see if I can show you like a more good movement here. So the closer you make it to 1, the closer it's going to stay to the second value, which is my player. And the more I make it to the value 0, it's probably going to follow the itself. Yeah, so you can see that it's kind of just like ghosting behind the player now, and then more of a smooth movement kind of deal. You can use either of these. You can use either set position to player.x or player y, or you can use the lerp that I show here. I'm just gonna show those real quick. Either one, just based on your preference, but this is just me, just, you know, showcasing what I have. For my game, I used lerp for my light, but only a little bit. So it's just barely visible in that game. Anyway, I'm gonna delete these. So now we are going to start making that light. So what I want is, I want at every tick, like what I had before, I want to set my light to the position, and I want mine to be a lerp. You could use the other one if you really want to. Okay, so that sets it up so that every tick it's going to follow that player even if it's visible or not. And I want to, so beforehand, just make sure that you go in here and you create a keyboard. Well, it's not going to show for me, but it's going to show keyboard if you type it in and you add it in. Just make sure you have that. I already set up most of this stuff here. But once you have the keyboard item on your game, just go into it and do on key pressed, and choose any key you want the player to press. You could also probably do this with a mouse, but right now I'm using keyboard. So I want on E pressed, I want my light to be visible. So what that's going to do is show my little light. Unfortunately, if you press it again, it's not going to go away, so we have to put that in as well. Or, well, you could put it in if you want to. I could probably do it here in a second, but I want my countdown, so I'm gonna do my little countdown. So, let me see. I'm going to put X amount of seconds. I want my game to count every second, but I'm going to add in another condition, and it's going to be only when my light is visible. If it's not visible, then it's not going to count that every second. And I am going to go over here, I'm going to add a global variable. I'm going to call it light countdown. I'm going to leave it as a number. And yes, I'll set it to, I'll go 6. Oh. Light 6. So for every 1 second, I want my game to subtract from light countdown. I want it to subtract 1, but only when it's visible. And for my second bit, I'm going to add a start of layout. This is just a precaution just in case, but I want to set a variable. I want to set my light countdown to 6. I want to make sure it's correct right there. You don't have to do this a little bit here, but I'm just doing it for my own sake. Okay, so now that we have every 1 second when this is when the light is visible, I'm going to subtract from light countdown. I'm going to add another condition. So I want to add a system. I want to compare variable if light countdown is equal to not equal to 0. And I'm going to add another one. Well, I'll just copy paste. It's equal to 6. Because I want my light countdown to only count down if it is equal to, well, maybe I should do less or equal to 6, but not 0. So I want to come over to my system again. I'm going to compare my variable if light countdown is equal to 0. And I'm going to add a new condition. If my light is still visible, then I am going to turn that light visibility to invisible. So it should look something like this. Just give it a minute. Should turn off eventually. Yep, there we go. Turns off on its own. So, to get that little countdown, I'm going to have to make a UI. I'm not going to go into the basics of making that UI at the moment, but I am going to just add in those elements. So what I want is a text box. I'm just going to put it wherever. I'm going to set it to 0 as the text. Just going to pretty it up a little bit. I'm going to make it white. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add in another sprite. You don't have to add in the countdown or the sprite if you don't want to. I'm just doing what I did for my little game level. I'm going to add in my flashlight spray if I could find it. Oh, here it is. I'm going to add that, put it on this side there. So what I'm going to do with these two is I'm going to set them both to be invisible because I don't want the player to see them at the moment. Also make sure you name those just to find them easier later. So this is light counter. And I want this to be called flashlight icon. So with those sets, I'm going to go in here to my every second countdown over here. And I'm going to set my flashlight icon to visible. And I want to set my text to visible. So, for every 1 second, we'll have the game subtract from our global variable up here, but only if the global variable is at or below 6, but not 0, and only when the light is visible. And we'll have our flashlight and our text show up, so it should look something like this. You can see them right there. And it should go away. Well, no, it doesn't go away. We have to put that in. So once the countdown is 0, we're going to hide the icon. Set visibility to invisible for both of these. There we go, and it should go away now, right when the light does. There we go. So now I want my text to be able to show the light countdown. An easy way to do it is probably at every tick. I'm going to use this one up here. Every tick, I want to set my text, to my global variable. So I'm going to do light countdown. There it is, and just leave it like that. So another thing that I can do, because once we do it the one time, then our light countdown is always going to be 0, right? So another thing that we can do is we can, once everything is invisible, we could set, well, not text, we can set that variable light countdown back to 6. And let's see how this looks. And there you go. That's our little light effect. Pretty close to what I have here. Let me see. This is my other game that I'm on here. So on my other game, because I had it set to count the numbers, I had it set so that if the global variable happened to be 6, I would set it to 5, just because I wanted that countdown to be 5. But on this one, like, you see that it's not really necessary. It's just going to be 5 anyway. But anyway, that's pretty much how you do a very basic kind of like a light effect around your character. You can probably fiddle around with the Z offset and everything if you want to. Just kind of finagle with it, see how you like it. See if you can finish up the UI or whatever you want to do with it. But that's very basic how you do it. Hopefully someone could find use with this tutorial. And thanks so much for watching, and have a good day. Hopefully this helps you out with your projects.